I found a tape buried beneath the floorboards of an abandoned kindergarten on the outskirts of town. It was raining the day I broke in, thunder rumbling like a warning, wind howling through rusted fences and broken swings. I wasn't supposed to be there. Nobody was. The place had been shut down for over 20 years after a fire killed 3 children and a teacher. Or at least, that's what the newspapers said. But people in town spoke of other things, of children who never came home, of shadows in the windows, of whispers behind the playground slide when no one was there. They said the building was cursed. But I don't believe in curses. I believe in evidence. I run a small YouTube channel, low subscribers, barely enough views to buy coffee. But I cover abandoned places, urban legends, and sometimes, if I'm lucky, real ghost stories. The kindergarten was a goldmine of lore, and I wanted to be the one to uncover it. When I got there, the place looked like it had been eaten by time. The sign out front, Little Oak Blossoms, was cracked down the middle, hanging by a single rusted chain. Moss coated the walls like old skin. Every window was either shattered or boarded up. But the door? Unlocked. Inside, the smell hit me first. Mold, ash, and something sour beneath it all, like rotting fruit. My flashlight cut through the dark, revealing tiny chairs turned over, dolls with melted faces, artwork peeling off the walls. Time had frozen here, but not peacefully. It felt wrong, like the place had been abandoned in a hurry, or worse, interrupted. I spent an hour exploring the rooms, filming everything. The nap room still had mats laid out, like the kids would be back any minute. In the art room, I found drawings pinned to a corkboard. Most were innocent, stick figures, trees, suns, but one stood out. It was a crude sketch of the classroom, but with something else in it. A tall black shape in the corner, with no face, no hands, just long, stretched arms and white eyes. It was labeled friend. My gut clenched. In the next room, the teacher's lounge, I found the hatch beneath the carpet. Old wood slats, stained dark, creaked when I pried them open. The space beneath was no larger than a crawl space, maybe used for old storage. I lowered myself down, flashlight in teeth, and that's when I found the tape. A dusty VHS with no label, just the word Showtime scratched into the plastic. I don't know why I took it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe I knew even then this was more than just an urban legend. I left the kindergarten right after, the wind behind me suddenly colder than before. Back home, I had to borrow an old VCR from my uncle. Hooked it up to my monitor, slipped in the tape, and hit play. Static. Then, a faint melody, off-key piano, like a broken music box. The screen flickered, and the image came into view, a grainy video of a classroom. The Little Oak Blossoms classroom. At first, it seemed normal. Kids playing, laughing. A young teacher clapping her hands, leading them in a song. But then, the camera panned, slowly, unnaturally, to the far corner of the room. That's when I saw it. The friend. Tall, black, faceless. Watching. None of the kids reacted. None of them screamed. They played around it like it was invisible. Except for one boy. He sat apart from the others, curled in a ball, eyes wide with terror. He saw it, and the more he stared, the more distorted the footage became, colors bleeding, sound warping. The teacher kept smiling, but her face that twitched. Frame by frame, it blurred into something else, like a mask cracking. And then the tape went black. When it returned, the classroom was empty. Chairs overturned, dolls torn apart, red streaks on the walls. The same piano music played, slower now. The screen zoomed in on a single word carved into the chalkboard. Stay. I hit stop. My hand was shaking. I told myself it was a prank. A hoax. Someone's twisted idea of art. But something about the tape felt real. Too real. The way the boy stared at the camera. The subtle shift in the teacher's eyes. The friend's presence. It wasn't just something on tape. It felt like it had seen me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the piano music. I saw the boy's face. I heard whispers in my apartment, behind doors, beneath the bed, in the vents. I chalked it up to paranoia. Until my phone rang at 3:17 a.m. No caller ID. I answered. Silence. Then a voice. A child's voice. Do you want to see the rest of the show? Click. The next day, I went back. I know how this sounds. I know what you're thinking. Why would I go back? Why not destroy the tape, forget the whole thing? Because I needed to know. I needed to be sure I wasn't going crazy. But this time, when I returned to the kindergarten, the door wasn't open. It was gone. I don't mean locked. I mean the entire building was gone. In its place, a flattened, scorched patch of land. No rubble. No sign it had ever existed. Like it had been wiped from reality. But I had the tape. Proof. Or so I thought. I ran home, plug it in again. But this time, all it showed was static. Except for one flicker, one frame, that froze on screen. It was my face. My reflection, staring back, mouth moving silently. And carved into the wall behind me, the word. Soon. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that frozen image on the screen, my face, mouth open in a silent scream, and behind me, the word soon carved deep into a wall that didn't exist in my apartment. I tore the place apart looking for anything familiar, cracks in the paint, markings, shapes, and shadows. Nothing matched, but the feeling wouldn't leave. That creeping sensation you get when someone's watching you. Only it wasn't someone. It was something. I tried to upload the video to my channel. Not the whole thing, just the first part, the surface-level tour of the kindergarten. YouTube flagged it immediately. Violation of community guidelines. Disturbing content. It hadn't even processed yet. I tried again, cutting more of the footage. Same result. I even contacted support. No reply. It was as if the file itself was cursed, and the internet knew. Then things started happening around me. The tape would turn on by itself. I'd come home, and the TV would be glowing blue, the static hissing softly through the room. The VCR would eject the tape, only for it to be inside again minutes later. I threw it out. I drove 6 miles out of town and dumped it in a lake. But that night, it was on my kitchen table, wet. That's when I realized this wasn't a haunting. It was an invitation. I stopped filming for the channel, locked my equipment away, even stopped answering calls. Friends thought I was losing it, and maybe I was. But then, something new happened. The dreams began. Vivid, rotting, and cold. In the dreams, I was a child again. Walking through empty classrooms, lights flickering above me. Doors that went nowhere. Chalkboards with no words. But there was always one thing constant. That dark, faceless figure watching from the corner. Always there, never moving. Until one night it did. It beckoned. I woke up soaked in sweat, heart pounding like I'd just sprinted through hell. And carved into my ceiling above my bed, scratched through the plaster with something not quite human, was the word. Showtime. I didn't go back to sleep. Instead, I pulled out an old mini-cam I'd hidden years ago, one that never connected to the internet. Analog. Pure tape. I set it up in my bedroom and let it run through the night. The next morning, I reviewed the footage. The first 2 hours were nothing. Me tossing, turning, groaning in my sleep. Then, 2:41 a.m., the static on the feed shifted. For just one frame, I saw it. The friend, standing in the corner of my room, just behind the camera. Eyes glowing faintly white. Arms stretching longer than human anatomy should allow. I paused it there. Zoomed in. There, scratched faintly into the wall beside it, was a phrase. Why did you watch? That's when it hit me. This thing, it was feeding. Not on me directly. Not yet. But on attention. The act of watching the tape, of playing the footage, of reviewing the dream, it was drawing something closer. The more I looked, the clearer it became. So I did the unthinkable. I stopped. No more cameras. No more tape. No more thinking about it. For a week, the nightmares stopped. The whispers faded. I started to believe I'd broken the link. Then my niece disappeared. She was 5. Sweet, quiet, obsessed with coloring books. Her parents had gone to check on her one morning, and she was gone. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. Just a single, crumpled drawing left behind on her bed. It was a sketch of her bedroom. And in the corner, tall and black, was the friend. I broke. I drove to the library, one of the oldest buildings in town. I wasn't looking for ghost stories. I was looking for records, historical permits, property deeds, and I found something. Little Oak Blossoms wasn't the original name of the building. Back in the 1960s, it had been a children's theater. Small, private, experimental. Shut down after several disturbing performances. One incident, in particular, stood out. a play called The Forever Room that was never publicly documented. Witnesses claimed the children spoke lines they had never been taught, that the stage lights would flicker in patterns, like Morse code. And in every photo of the event, the same shadow, the same figure. I dug deeper. The play's writer? Name unknown. Referred to only as the director. A recluse. Rumored to believe that children were closer to the veil and could be used to invite things through it. I started to sweat, because in the margins of the file, in shaky handwriting, someone had written, "The show never ends." Suddenly, I understood. The kindergarten, the tape, the friend, the dreams. It was all a performance, one that needed an audience. And I had been front row center since the moment I pressed play. I didn't drive home that night. I stayed in my car, slept in a parking lot with the dome light on and the radio playing old songs just to drown out the silence. But even then, I saw something. In the distance, just beyond the edge of the streetlights, a tall figure, still, faceless, watching. I don't know what I expected that night when I saw the friend standing beneath the streetlight. Maybe I thought it would vanish again, melt into the shadows like it always did. But this time, it didn't move. It stood there for hours. I didn't blink, didn't sleep. The next morning, when the sun broke over the horizon, it was gone. But it had left something behind. A note taped to my windshield. Simple, crooked letters, written in a child's hand. "Let's finish the show." I wish I could say I burned the note and walked away, that I pretended none of this happened, that I went back to my job, to my normal life. But there was no life to go back to. Every screen in my apartment was frozen on that same frame of my face. Every mirror in my home was fogged from the inside. And in my niece's room, her coloring books kept flipping to a page that didn't exist, a black silhouette holding hands with a smaller figure. No faces, just a phrase scrawled above. "You're next." I went back. I returned to that kindergarten. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It was inevitability. There was something about that place, like gravity, like it had been pulling me in since the moment I watched the tape. The front doors were unlocked. No wind, no movement, just the sound of an old piano playing from somewhere deep inside. Not a melody, just two notes, over and over. I walked slowly, flashlight flickering in my hand. As I passed the main hallway, the children's drawings on the walls had changed. They were darker now, faces scratched out, bodies pulled by long, black strings towards something unseen. And then I reached the classroom, the one from the tape. Except it was different. The rot was gone. The walls had been cleaned, toys neatly arranged, like it had been restored to how it looked decades ago. And in the center, facing the blackboard, sat rows of small wooden chairs, all full of children, but their backs weren't breathing. They weren't real. Paper thin, folded, like silhouettes cut from construction paper. And each of them wore a tiny mask, one for every child that ever watched the tape. And at the front of the class, on a crude wooden stage, stood a figure in a tattered coat, face covered with a porcelain mask cracked straight down the middle. The director. He didn't move, didn't speak, but I heard the voice anyway, not through my ears but inside my skull, like a radio turned on in my mind. "You watched, you shared, you made it real." I wanted to run, but my legs didn't listen. The director raised a gloved hand and pointed behind me. I turned slowly. There was a mirror standing against the back wall, one I hadn't noticed before. In its reflection, the children were moving, swaying, but in real life, they were still. Then I saw it, me. In the reflection, I was seated in the last chair, wearing a mask I hadn't put on, and behind me, slowly placing its hands on my shoulders, the friend. I dropped the flashlight. The room went dark, but my vision didn't. I could still see too clearly. A second performance had begun. Voices whispered from every corner. Laughter, applause, screams muffled by static. The stage lights snapped on, blinding white. And the director began the play. No words, just movement. The children raised their arms in unison, strings dangling from their wrists now, puppeteered by something above the ceiling tiles. And me? I stood without meaning to. Walked down the aisle, onto the stage. The mask fused to my face. I tried to scream, but tasted velvet and saw dust and silence. The script had already been written. and it ended with me. Then, darkness. When I woke up, I was on my apartment floor. Tape in my hand. A fresh one, labeled, "The Final Showing." I should have destroyed it. But some part of me had to know. I played it. It wasn't the kindergarten. It wasn't any place I recognized. It was a theater. Rows and rows of empty seats. And a single spotlight. On me. Tied to a chair. Eyes open. Head twitching every few seconds. A laugh track played. And from the darkness behind the lens, something watched. Then the screen glitched and cut to black. Except one line of text remained burned into the screen. White blinking. "Are you watching?" That night, my niece came back. She was standing outside my apartment at 3 a.m. Still in her pajamas. Eyes wide open. Unblinking. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. Just handed me a single drawing. It was me. On stage. Arms raised. Strings above my hands. And beneath, in childlike scrawl, "Encore." She hasn't spoken since. Doctors call it trauma-induced mutism. But I know better. She saw the play. She knows what comes next. Because 2 days later, my face appeared again. Not on my TV, but on someone else's. A friend called me, panicked. Said he was watching a ghost documentary on YouTube, and for 2 frames, my image flashed on screen. Then it glitched out. I didn't believe him. Until others called too. Then strangers. Emails. Messages. Screenshots. My reflection showing up in random videos on different channels. A virus? No, an infection. The more people watched, the more visible I became. The more the friend could spread. That's why I'm writing this. Not as a warning, but as a final act. Because I don't think I'm real anymore. Not in the way I used to be. I hear music at night. 2 notes. And I see children in the shadows. Waiting. Smiling. So if you're reading this, and if any of it feels familiar, if you've seen the tape, if you've heard the laughter, you're already part of the audience. And the curtain's rising again.